Welcome. I'm so glad that you can join me here today. 306 pages 735 and 36 out of 850. This is an audiovisual version of my book named after my ministry, The Sovereign Light. My name is Reverend Maria Arvanitides. How do you do? And this is a course in metaphysical spirituality. And as I edit with you here, moving right along to see and perhaps correct any spelling mistakes. Oh my goodness. Yes, I see one here on lesson 266, earned, E-A-R-N, and it's missing the E. Is exactly why I'm doing this, not to change the actual concept, but to change for any protruding things like this that would get you to doubt this book, you see, or the learning process and what we're going through toward enlightenment together at whatever level. Sometimes we become so hard on ourselves because we have to kind of rush and get it there and own it and then work on it and work through it. And it's all a process. Some people just do it in secrecy and then come out. But the less help we get, the more we get out of it, of this experience. So everything happens for a reason and for the greater benefit on our journey of this path that we're on, with every decisions that we make. And the beauty of it, that we do have choice, always, and how things unfold. We could kind of take the shortcut and go right across, like we do on linear time concept, around the sphere. And I could even call it two-dimensional circle and just do the diameter, or we go around the circumference of the perimeter. And either way, we experience the many facets and the depth, the level of depth. Again, we choose what we can accept and take in, and from what angle, meaning perspective. And so, let's begin. Today, we open up to a new idea as we commence on point number 9. What is shame and guilt? Because this is a frequency that I had to meticulously go through and observe, and I'm pretty sure that we all have experienced it at one level or the other, and might still be going through it, that we need to clear some beliefs and ideas of ourselves and others, and what brings us to this feeling. For me, I can open up with my experience from even, and they start coming up, right? It's like, oh, I did go through this. And what is it that we're feeling? The shame. In 2012, at Paul O'Connor Funeral Home, when it was still a mom and pop operation, with the assistance of McKinnon and Bo's agency. Well, I was still connected, working with McKinnon and Bo's before I even got licensed. I was still on their payroll. And there was a conflict of interest there. But from what I could see is I took the level of loyalty toward, as a license, that I'm acknowledged with the upgrade of working at Paulo Connor Funeral Home as a licensed funeral director. But then there was many times when I had to go to McKinnon Bowes and got really disrespected because of my authority now and my responsibility to the company, that I could not just give away the keys and say, here you go, do what you, to unlicensed people. So there's rules and regulations, right, that we must adhere to. And so I did not lower myself to someone who feels that they have a chip on their shoulder because of, male versus female and all these. I just went completely by the books. And then I took my loyalty, my side, to my boss, who was the owner of Paulo Connor Funeral Home. That didn't really go very well, right? Okay, so I decided to get my record of employment and then just go full on, give my full of myself to Paulo Connor Funeral Home, because now I'm a licensed funeral director and I should be seen as that, class 1, whatever. And that wasn't enough. So I had to earn to become a preceptor at that too, because they stuck me somewhere where they wanted to kind of make a martyr out of me still, because when you're new, this is what happens. So I was down there, correcting the students because they would take students. I started talking with her. She was a pregnant single mother, and they were, giving her an opportunity and a position for internship, and she was just blowing the body. She was like, I'm not saying in that way, I'm saying that she was really messing up. And so I had to kind of step in, and then as I was talking to her, I let her know that I'm a lesbian. Did she not use that as ammo to get herself out of the situation that she, instead of owning up and womaning up, whatever, and then the 82-year-old, almost Alzheimer's person, the mother, who I couldn't really stand up to either, but the person who hired me was her son. And her son and daughter are not licensed so that they can have better control over their children in the business. But the mom and pop were licensed, 50 years in the business. And as soon as she found out, that intern told the mama that, guess what, Maria's this. Right away, I forget her name, Margaret. She was so disgusted in me. She was giving me this disgusting look as I was at the front, we were conducting a funeral, people coming in and everything, right, at the reception. And she was looking at me like in a disgusted look. The next day, and now I'm like doing part-time on a casual basis, and I'm earning my way to full-time, hopefully. Did she not call me over the weekend and say to me, I'm sorry, but we are like not having that much flow here, so I'm going to have to lay you off. Not even fire me, I'm going to have to lay you off. Like, I should be ashamed of myself telling people that I'm a lesbian. I'm like, what? I'm just going to have to lay you off. So, and I'll think about it whether we hire you again if we get really busy. So I had to just kind of let it go. I thought it was just so funny that nobody had the nerve. And they put a woman who's almost like lost her mind to call me over the phone and tell me how ashamed she is of me. Full circle. Okay. That was one of my experiences. And I was so heartbroken, not only by intimate relationships or things, but actually even work, even within my profession. Whatever engagements, they can be very heartbreaking when you find out that, hey, they want you to be part of their social, they want you to come and join and participate, but dare you bring a girlfriend or something like, and you're not normal, and all these men, and it's like, oh, you have so much power wearing a skirt as a woman over us, and all these things, and yet it was a lot of sexism. Now I'm blending in Highland Funeral Home, but yeah, and I had to kind of leave because they were being sexist. This was Highland Funeral Home. This was many years before that, 2010. I kind of went back to, and it was like, wow, because my partner was a female at the time. And so if I quit, I'll never have another funeral job in the whole province of Ontario. Whatever, dudes. So I just kept thinking, well, whatever, just kept going. And now I see how the more it gets more and more into a rigid kind of, it's become a prison for all of you workers out there, and COVID didn't help any, so it just kept getting worse and worse, and I thought, no, man. I did my 20 years, and I've, experienced all there is to experience with the mom and pop shops, and with if I wanted to open up my own and have a franchise or corporation. So I kind of learned the business of it all. But it was very heartbreaking at the same time. It's like entering a relationship, and yes, a very toxic, narcissistic one at that, because we are clearing all this right now, and it's taking a long, long time. And so that was one of my intro experiences there. Can you think of any? As we go into this right now, we're going to be going into many episodes on what is shame and guilt. And so let's take a few deep breaths in and really ground and center. And by now, with all these triggers, have you learned to pick up on the mindfulness of breathing? Just really, just really breathing. Stretching, bringing your scapulas together, back, and stretching out. And again, when we breathe in all the way down and through your crown and from the soles of your feet and tailbone. And breathe in, congregate in the heart space, anchor, and breathe out into the resonating field, and just ground from your heart space center. There are many ways to ground. It's all about connection. And just breathe in, and with no gaps in between. Breathe in, and in a circular motion, breathe out. Just keep it flowing, and allow yourself to go deeper. And there's many things during this that will inspire me to do. Perhaps meditations, and even the Merkaba of doing it in the other direction. I was going to do something like that. But there's no time limit to these things. It's just when it happens, I do it. And so perhaps in the following year to come, stay tuned. And are you ready? Are you ready to say these words out loud with me? I can feel shame and guilt when the worth of self is lowered to that of others' expectations, and of having earned for such love with that of their established currency to self-worth. Okay. Just breathe in. I can feel shame and guilt when the worth of self is lowered to that of others' expectations and of having earned for such love with that of their established currency to worth. I can feel shame and guilt when the worth of self is lowered to that of others' expectations and of having earned for such love with that of their established currency to worth. Again, the self approval for the self to feel that in order to feel the love of another must be blocked off with rejection. In this case, the self will push away or cause for others to push them away, and so on in many other different creative self-expressive sabotages to reflect the guilt and shame. The pinching off of self so to fit in the constraints of playing with rules and regulations so to earn the kind of life that will allow for others' contributions of currency to build the worth of self. So rather than building the self-worth from within, we reject ourselves and what other people think to help us build that self-worth from in service to them. So blending with soul is the only way to better identify and understand the self as God. This way it can refresh to know itself from new perspective. In a sense, we're not the creator of galaxies and all that, but we are that sliver of God. Yes, as soon as we self-identify that we are in the law of oneness, creator, angel gods. So I can feel shame and guilt when the worth of self is lowered to that of others' expectations and of having earned for such love with that of their established currency to worth. And there is no shame in the direct flow of self-fulfillment and the shame to seek its very likeness within the physical. Procreation has taken its toll in the idea that it can hang on to its old beliefs and structures as to deceive into a world of immortality. To carry forth and for as long as it could contain its linear concept, to perceive it in the way it once was, in the deception of the fallen world and family tribe of its community. This old past trap can be the guilt to linger into the illusion of immortality, and where it is very much corruptible in this way to have the self in such obvious shame over it. So the purpose is to introduce the concept of shame and guilt as a way of life that was and where corruption had created to deceive a place for immortality with decay, loss, society. Thank you for joining me here today. And I will leave you with today's affirmation. I can feel the shame and guilt when the worth of self is lowered to that of others' expectations, and having earned for such love with that of their established currency to worth.